Hey everyone, Anthony Fantano here, the internet's busiest music nerd, and it's time for a review of the new Lil Ugly Mane album, Oblivion Access. Lil Ugly Mane, aka Sean Kemp, aka Travis Miller,
AKK, the Southside Tickler.
Nobody calls him that. This is his highly anticipated swan song project, Oblivion Access. But even though this is supposed to be the last Lil Ugly Mane thing, Miller doesn't exactly hype this project up. On the Bandcamp page where you can find this, he sort of describes it as a pile of skin flakes, blood, and cum that was just too thick to go down the drain with everything else that he's created over the past 5 years. And given Lil Ugly Mane's kind of anti-social history, I would expect nothing less, or more, whatever. So it seems like he's kind of selling this as a collection of leftovers, and maybe that's not the worst thing in the world given that previous releases like Third Side of Tape, which I did love, this project was kind of a long hulking mass of music from various parts of the Lil Ugly Mane creative spectrum, dabbling in numerous genres across this project's very long runtime, and maybe we'll see something as diverse over here. Still though, I don't think that's necessarily going to satisfy some fans who I think are just kind of waiting for him to release like Mr. Thug Isolation Part 2, the breakout project that put the Lil Ugly Mane project on the map in the first place. But Oblivion Access is not that, and I'm totally fine with that. I'm not really as big a fan of Mr. Thug Isolation as a lot of people are. I find it kind of gimmicky. Rather, I think a lot of the Oblivion Access material shares more in common with the sporadic rap tracks that you might have found on the plethora of very difficult to sift through, long-winded, long-tracked projects that Lil Ugly Mane has been dropping ever since the release of that album. It's confusing, I know, and it's supposed to be. Ever since Lil Ugly Mane blew up, it seems like he's done everything in his power to make it difficult for people to get into his music. Another thing about this project that reminds me of previous Lil Ugly Mane projects, it's that it seems like Miller is kind of fooling around indulgently and just kind of making music for himself, which hasn't always held his music back. Usually his ideas are so sharp, they're so great, they're so interesting, that they don't really need incessant grooming to translate or be entertaining. Plus, the rough quality of his music adds to the very grimy, seedy, shadowy character of it. But I can't help but feel like with Oblivion Access, we're really listening to Miller scrape the bottom of the barrel as hard as he can to string together these 13 tracks. On this thing, we have a number of very uninspired transitional moments, though I do kind of like that weird trap Motown fusion on the song Leonard's Lake. That was kind of pretty. Or we have these really eyebrow-raising moments like on the very end of Collapse and Appear, where we kind of have Microsoft Samantha reciting this cringeworthy poem that sounds like it was lifted straight out of a goth kid's diary. The line about towel racks reminding him of pallbearers carrying caskets, as well as the line about the woman gripping her purse when she sees him out of fear. It's moments like this on the record that are just so edgy that I just can't help but not. So we have these transitions, we have these detours, and then we have songs that are legitimate rap tracks with a straightforward beat and a verse or two laced into it, but these tracks are kind of brief, not that fleshed out, and they dissipate into the air pretty quickly once that verse or two is dropped. I do like the production generally. It's noisy, it's textured, it's got an ominous vibe to it, but the verses are either I don't know, just really not up to any real quality standard that I could define, or the verses, the vocals are so smudgy and difficult to read that they're just really unsatisfying. And another couple of things become really apparent. One, without all of the vocal and studio trickery, it's really clear that Miller is a huge LP fan, because it seems like he's borrowing a lot of his cadences and his flows straight from him, which I think is a bit of a no-no for an artist who kind of puts forward this anti-everything, total contextless void kind of narrative. And for whatever reason, the tracks on this project are kind of hitting me in a way that no other Little Ugly Mane project has, and that's that it just kind of reeks of horrorcore, and not even really good horrorcore. Like, it's trying so hard to be the antithesis of anything good, pleasant, or nice that it just kind of smells like a facade. Either that or it's coming from a place of such real and distasteful bitterness that even though it might be sincere, it's still not likable. Sort of like how when he's blatantly claiming that he's never received an ounce of pleasure from sex on the song Columns. Like, okay. Even tracks that have more of a topical approach and seem really personal and descriptive and story-like the song Drain Counter, just kind of reads like a B-side to me. There are a few bright spots on here, lyrical bright spots, like at the start of the song Columns, where he's kind of rapping about internet age narcissism, or on the song Opposite Lanes, where I think he drops a really great line about how that third eye is just a bullet hole in your head. But for every likable moment on here, I think there's a spot that's kind of questionable, and I think Miller kind of uses the murky, lo-fi, smudgy vibe of this project to kind of cover up the very obvious faults in these songs. It's not that the thing is awful from beginning to end, it's that he's very clearly not performing and writing up to the quality that he has on past projects, which again, I think isn't necessarily reflective of his talent as an artist on the whole. I think it's mostly because this thing really is just an underwhelming B-sides collection that doesn't measure up to the rest of the Ugly Mane discography. If there is one track that I can praise musically, lyrically, and topically, it's the closer here, Intent and Purulent Discharge, where I think here Miller states the intentions and the MO of this project quite well. Its philosophy and its history can kind of be summed up in the relationship that he has with his audience, in that the audience is consistently reading a little bit too much into the music and expecting so many great things from it, and really everything they see in it they kind of create themselves, because in a mocking kind of way, Miller sort of shoots back at his audience saying, oh, what does it mean? What did he say? What is the message? Blah. He's really making fun of his fans who are so desperate to find out what exactly this music is all about, and so on and so forth. But then later in the track, he goes on to state that he's just rhyming words that sound good together, and he's doing it to pass the time. He's doing it because it feels good. He's pretty much saying to the face of the people who are overhyping this project, the platitudes here are empty. Sadly, even with it being so blatantly said, I think some people are still not going to get it. And for me personally, it's kind of always been obvious, even from Mr. Thug Isolation. Even though that project does have its merits, it does kind of seem like he made something that became popular accidentally, like he was just kind of fooling around. And honestly, I'm not looking to be jerked around by some half-hearted musical project from an anti-socialite. Overall, I'm kind of indifferent toward this thing. I'm feeling a decent to strong 5 on this project. Transition. What did you think of this project? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Why? What do you think I should review next? And that's it. Anthony Fantano, Little Ugly Mane, forever.